Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for joining us today. Um, Today, we're here with Attorney Ruby Powers and Attorney Cynthia Milian. We're going to be talking about asylum updates and the latest news. I don't know if you guys have heard, but in the news lately, there's going to be some expected changes on the 21st and on the 25th. So that's what we're going to be elaborating on today. And I would like to introduce my lovely co-panelists. So starting off with Miss Ruby Powers. She is a board certified attorney and she is considered an expert in the asylum field, guys. So hold on to your socks. Pretty good information. She is also an on the AILA Innovation Task Force, and actually this past weekend, she was on the AILA virtual conference and she presented. So that was really fun. And now with Miss Cynthia Milian, she is the associate attorney of Powers Law Group. She is the current vice president of MABA, the Mexican American Bar Association of Houston. So that's really awesome. And yes. So today we're just going to be talking, like I said, we're going to go a little bit over the asylum, basics of asylum. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask down below on the Q&A. You can also raise your hand if you guys, have a questions. We're also going to be talking about court updates. Recently, our very own Ruby Powers went to an asylum interview, so she has really good insight on that. And again, we will be talking about the changes expected on the 21st and on the 25th, along with some proposed new rules. Again, these are not set, they are proposed, but our attorneys will elaborate on that. So, Ruby?
All right. Thank you so much, Dana. I really appreciate that and glad to be here with you all today. Uh,
Slight technical problems, guys.
Okay, we're gonna go this way. So you can put your mouse.
Looks like we lost audio on Ruby.
Sorry. We're going to give you a little bit of information and then open it up more to discussion, but you can put your questions in the Q&A for right now. And I'm going to go ahead and launch some polls that we're going to have open for just a little bit. Have you applied for asylum? Are you considering applying for asylum? And do you know someone who's applied for asylum? And we're just curious to get a little feel for who's out there, what you want to hear from us today. But just to give you a little bit of experience, a little bit of background about us, is that we've been doing asylum for a long time. Even before I was licensed, I was a student attorney, did asylum cases. And we're not a firm that just does asylum from one country. We've helped people from the list of the countries below, and maybe even some more we haven't added to the list. And on top of that, we've actually gone to the asylum offices in the United States, everything from Boston, Arlington, Virginia, New Jersey, Miami, New Orleans, Houston. I think those are the ones I can remember right now. And in terms of immigration court, we've done asylum in immigration court around Texas, at the major cities, as well as in other states, including Pennsylvania. So what we're trying to say. What the basics of asylum, it's really complicated, but we're going to distill it down to the basics. And, a lot of regularly Cynthia and I speak on asylum to other lawyers and to community, but it's that you've had past persecution or fear of future persecution on account of that connection to one of these 5 protected grounds: race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group. And that area is really molded and shaped by case law and political opinion. So just to give you a little bit of background that's happened, so we've got about 2 minutes left on our poll, and we've got some people still answering. We'll share that when we're done. So, basically USCIS had slowed down in mid-March, and then they were slowly reopening in June. We had an expedite request in and had an interview in early July. At the Houston field office, I went in, everybody, first the translator went in, then the client and their family, and then myself. We were all wearing masks. Once they were fingerprinted and photoed, HAL monitors walked us to our appropriate rooms, and that's where we stayed for the whole entire time. We were watching over an iPad, and it had 4 little mini screens, sort of like, I think it was like almost like Microsoft Teams type of a system, where I could see the translator, the officer, my client, and myself. And we used the phone system to make sure they wouldn't lose connection. All the materials should be turned in as far advanced as possible. Sometimes you don't have that luxury. We brought a copy in addition to what we had emailed. We prepared our clients over Zoom in advance, so they didn't have to come into the office, and that was very convenient. We even opened up the evenings and weekends to be available for the client's time. Everyone has to stay healthy and not be exposed to COVID, otherwise they would have to reschedule. And what we can tell is that there's about 2 interviews a day at the Houston Asylum office. And at the conference I was at this week, it sounds like it's around similar numbers, maybe 1 or 2 at other field asylum offices around the country. So with that being said, we're seeing that I think that they're focusing on the reschedules, the ones who got canceled in March, April, and they're probably focusing on the expedites. I don't think we're getting officially that's what they're doing, but I think that's probably what they're doing. And so that's what we've seen here locally and pretty much around the country. They're taking as many precautions. But what that means is that if you are in queue or waiting or even filed in the last few months, you probably are going to be waiting. They're not doing that many. They used to do maybe 2. Let me finish the concept though. They used to do maybe 2 interviews per officer, and they're doing 2 interviews a day for the whole office. So it's probably going to take a while for them to catch up. Moving over to court, so what the bottom line is, and this is defensive asylum, there's non-detained and detained court. Non-detained means you're not detained, and that hearings are being postponed still right now, and the latest is August 7th, but they still are open to take filings. They can still take your asylum application, they can still take your motions. So if you don't have an attorney already, that's what they can be doing. They can be filing those things. How we're finding out what's happening in the future is via Twitter. The Executive Office of Immigration Review is posting whether they're open or closed. And we found out recently that they're to give us the update on Sunday and Monday, and they usually go a week or 2 out. At the call this week that I was on with other immigration judges, they basically said that immigration judges really don't know what's happening, and they're asking for protections, including masks, air purification, laptops, and other protocols to make sure that everyone is safe. So even it doesn't sound like that has been worked out yet. My prediction is it's going to be a while before non-detained court opens full force. I think I'd also heard that they were waiting for a couple of weeks of COVID cases to lower before they opened up certain sites. But in the Houston, Texas area, we haven't been seeing that for a little while. So we'll continue to monitor that, but and detained court is still moving forward. The bottom line is don't wait till the last minute to find an attorney to help you. You don't want to miss deadlines because the non-detained court can still take filings, and they are still technically open. So I'm going to leave the next steps to Cynthia, Attorney Milian, to cover. And so far, it looks like from the poll, we still have open about 75% of people have applied for asylum on this. 50-50 are considering applying, and 75% know somebody who has applied. So it's a variety of people who have and the people who are considering it. So I'll go ahead and make sure you can put questions in your Q&A, and I'll let Attorney Milian continue with the presentation.
Yes. So there are several changes that are going to be implemented in the next a little less than a month. one of the first ones that we're going to talk about is the change that's going to happen on August 21st. So the first change that's going to happen is that usually when a first-time applicant for a work permit applies, so USCIS has 30 days to adjudicate that work permit application. And the first change that's going to happen is that it's going to give USCIS longer than 30 days so that they can adjudicate that work permit application. This is going to inevitably result in delays. And so what they're trying to do is weed out any frivolous filings or any fraudulent filings of asylum applications. So that's one of the biggest changes. This is going to be implemented August 21st. The second change that we're also...
Attorney Milian, so what would you suggest then is something people should take away from this change happening in just about less than a month?
Yes, so the biggest takeaway on that, and I think it would be a response to a question right now. Someone stated, I already applied for asylum and it's 190 days already, checking on the website. My next step is an interview. So what do I do now? To answer your question, Ruby, and to also touch on the question asked is, if you've already accrued 150 days on your asylum application, then our recommendation is to apply for a work permit now. Don't wait until early August, don't wait until August 15th, because you want to make sure that you get a receipt notice prior to that August 21st, 2020 day, so that way you can get a quick adjudication on that work permit.
And one thing we didn't say, but the USCIS is planning to furlough 70% of their staff, I think, as of August 3rd, which is going to cause a tremendous, that's 70%, that's a lot. I think they said like 13,000, I don't know, that's a lot. But there is a hearing next week in DC about potentially moving funding, but bottom line, yes, get it in, because after this date, they're going to get rid of that processing time, and it could take a lot longer.
And then if we can go on to the next slide. So these are the changes. These are some of the bigger changes that are happening on August 25th. So basically what's going to happen is, if you haven't accrued 150 days on your asylum application by August 25th, then you're not going to be eligible for a work permit. So this rule is basically retroactive. So it goes back 150 days from the date that it's being implemented. So basically, if you didn't apply prior to March 28th, 2020, and you didn't accrue those 150 days by August 25th, then you're going to have to wait 365 days before you can apply for a work permit. So I know that there are some other people that may interpret this differently, but this is what the rules are stating, what we've seen in practice pointers. We hope that maybe once the date comes, people can clarify this, so that if someone did apply between March 28th, 2020 and August 25th, then they can still qualify for a work permit within 150 days.
That's a really good point, and this was interpreted differently by immigration attorneys even in the last 2 weeks. We realized a discrepancy, and the author of the Asylum book and for American Immigration Lawyers Association clarified this for me this week. And but we're really hoping that well, one, this is wrong, but because of this is retroactive. It wasn't fair. People didn't know about this change, and I could see litigation potentially happening because, it really shouldn't be retroactive, because then a person didn't know what the consequences of not filing by a certain date were. So we're hoping that the interpretation will change and or there'll be litigation. But even if there wasn't, if the USCIS doesn't get funding or take care of their furlough issue, anybody, regardless of when they're processing filing, is going to see a delay. So we have to be cognizant of that.
Right, and another change within the August 25th rule is that if you entered HIWI, if you entered without inspection after August 25th, you're not going to be eligible for a work permit while your asylum application is pending. This doesn't apply to people that may have entered EWE in the past unlawfully. If you're applying for a renewal, that this is not going to be applicable to you. It's just forward looking from August 25th. Other changes is that if you've been in the United States for over a year and you apply for asylum, maybe under changed country conditions, or, things have, changed, or you didn't know about asylum, if you apply 1 year after your entry into the United States, you're not going to be eligible for a work permit as well. They're also, they've always had this in place that under category C8, which is the category for an asylum pending applicant to get a work permit, if you have criminal convictions, you're not eligible for a work permit. But this new rule just seems to kind of broaden that. So be on the lookout for that. Any past crimes can make you ineligible for a work permit. USCIS is also going to have much more discretion to limit the validity period of your work permit. And a lot of times, another change that we're going to see is that a lot of times people can get a recommended approval from an affirmative asylum office. And what this new rule is implementing is that it's going to automatically terminate a work permit if there's a denial, or even if there's a recommended approval. When there's something that's not final and conclusive, it's going to give USCIS more authority to cancel or eliminate that work permit. There's a lot of other bases for denial that they're going to implement. For example, if you have a federal case pending or a federal petition for review, you're not going to be eligible for a work permit. So if you want to go on to the next slide.
And I just want to say something positive. If we were, because I'm answering fielding some of the questions, there could be a different interpretation. There could be litigation. It's just there's been so many changes all at once. It's like the expression of like drinking from a fire hose, which is insane. It's like too much stuff. So that's why the litigation, it's sort of like they're having to pick and choose. And also when things are new, it takes a little while to get a defendant, a plaintiff ready. So just what we've seen in the backdrop of ADACA, it took about a month or so before they had the litigation ready to do litigation to make that change. So the other thing is if we have a different administration that's more immigrant friendly come January 2021, there's likely going to be a lot of rollbacks of this harsh rules and changes. And so I just want to give some people some hope that we might see a lot of change in the near future.
Yes, thank you for that positivity, Ruby. And will change very soon. And things to just take away. So if you have, like we've iterated before, if you have a work permit application that's already pending, if you've already accrued the 150 days on your asylum application, then this rule is not going to be applicable to you. This is for people that may have applied, like I said, after March 28, 2020 of this year and forward. So, if you have something pending, if you're considering, this is a perfect opportunity for you to consult with an attorney. And it's also a perfect opportunity for us to warn you, don't be careful with notarios, people that call themselves attorneys, that promise you to give you a work permit based off an application that is frivolous or that doesn't have any basis, because then it can get you into, or it can place you in a worse position in which you're in now.
That's right. And another thing to note is that there have been a lot of delays in receipts. I think there's two things I want to say. One, in getting the receipt for either the asylum, sometimes it's taken 4 to 6 weeks, and also receipts to get for work authorization. Because with anticipation of the furlough, they've also been cutting contractors, and basically things have just gotten a little bit awry and slow. And this isn't just from our office. I was at this conference this whole week with all the immigration attorneys in the country, and they are saying the same thing. I was even listening to the Ombudsman Forum, and they echoed the same thing. Second thing is that there was a lot of litigation about the work authorization cards coming slow, and they do have litigation moving forward on the EADs, the work authorizations, because they were not being produced. So that should hopefully move forward getting those cards. Are we on to the next slide?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. So we don't want to spend too much time on these proposed rules because, as Attorney Powers mentioned earlier, we're hoping for change in the near future. And these are just proposed rules that the Department of Homeland Security sent out a few weeks ago, and we submitted our comments on why we opposed these rules and why we thought that they were based at the heart of it. What they wanted to do was essentially erode asylum law. So what they're trying to do is limit the number or the types of individuals that can get asylum. So for example, you know, particular social groups, they're wanting to redefine, recodify so that individuals that are seeking asylum based on that, for example, the group in which they claim to belong exists independently of any alleged persecutory acts and can't be defined exclusively by the alleged harm that they're claiming. So I know that's a lot of maybe legalese, something that you probably don't want to hear, but you know, there's just be on the lookout and understand that there's a lot that they're wanting to get rid of within asylum law. Different groups of people, for example, gender-based claims, they're wanting to get rid of that as well. So, you know, just be aware that that is happening, that they don't implement it. But we're going to continue to monitor and do what we can to advocate against these rules that should not be implemented. I don't know if you want to say something on that, Ruby.
Well, I mean, this administration seems to have you know, be at war with immigrants, and we're hoping that there'll be change in the near future. We've been human rights, international law, asylum, immigration attorneys for a long time. We really advocate for our clients in all ways. And, you know, we've even seen some recent changes with the third country rule, you know, so sometimes a case law can pop up and really change a lot of people's lives. So we're just going to remain positive that these new rules don't go into effect. And if anything, the ones that do go into effect in August will be rolled back as soon as possible. So we covered the proposed rules, I think. So we're open for more questions now. Let's see, let's see if I got it. So I think, can you see the questions?
Yeah, you can see them through the Q&A. It looks like you've answered a few.
Mm-hmm.
There's some very specific, like for example, is a speeding ticket considered part of a lesser conviction? I don't know if you're trying to ask if a speeding ticket would make you ineligible for a work permit, or if that would be considered, you know, a bar for you to get your work permit. But typically, traffic tickets are not something that will stop you from getting a work permit. If you have anything more specific, we would recommend doing a consult so that we can thoroughly analyze that.
So if you have other questions, let us know. It looks like somebody, the notice date and the receive date. So if you've applied for asylum and it's been more than 150 days, then you can apply for work authorization, and you should get it the notice. You should get it out. Oh, I see what you're saying. You got the notice date of about 45 days after the receipt date. There was a question that they've had the notice date 145 days. They have the receipt date is 190. The receipt date is the important date. That's the one you counted for. And, you know, I think the other thing to note to a lot of people is that immigration court, things get a little funky there. That's not a legal term, but basically you know, when you apply for asylum, there's a coordination between USCIS and EOIR, the immigration court, about your filing your asylum clock. And there'd been litigation in the past about that, but basically they have a clock internally for you. But you know, I think one of the bottom lines is if you're eligible for work authorization now, get your application in now. This shouldn't affect people who are just doing renewals for the most part, except does it mean that they won't get it to you really quickly? It means it might take a lot longer for the renewals. And the other thing to note about renewals, so if you've had your work authorization already, if you file it timely, that means before it expires, then you will get an automatic work authorization renewal as long as it was filed timely, and that receipt will be proof of that for at least 180 days. So that's good to know. You don't have to wait for the card. You can go to your employer and show that, or use that for driver's license or what have you. Let's see, we have another question. Master hearing was in June. They have moved most of those hearings next year. Okay, yeah, let's talk about that, about what we've seen with rescheduling of hearings. Cynthia, you know a little bit more about what you've seen. I think one thing I'll just say is that in Houston area, we have two locations of the non-detained court in downtown Houston, and then they have that new Gessner location, which has the capacity of up to 9 judges. And their goal would be to just get everybody set, and as soon as something gets canceled, they try to give them a new date. Their focus has been mostly on giving people recent arrivals dates, but it's going to be one big mess where they just keep giving a date and it keeps getting reset. What have you seen, Attorney Milian, on some of those reschedulings?
Yeah, so a lot of the reschedules that we've had in the past 3 months, they're getting rescheduled for early next year, February to even mid-March of next year, and they're getting rescheduled to new judges. And a lot of the times we're also not getting the actual hearing notices via mail. So the way that we always track of when the next hearing is, we check the portal online. So another thing that I always recommend is, always, even if you have an attorney, try to do this at least once or twice a month, is call the 1-800 number to make sure that you don't miss anything, because it seems like they're moving things around very quickly, and a lot of the times we can get a notice, not right now since the courts are closed, but we can get it at a later time or closer to the hearing date, and we want to make sure that we have ample time to prepare ourselves and prepare the client before attending any hearing. So things are changing within court here in Houston. Hearing dates are getting postponed to early next year and switched around to new judges.
And the 1-800 number is 1-800-79.
It's 1-800-898.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
7180.
Okay, you want to say that again? The right number?
It's 1-800-898-7180.
So if you're in immigration court, you should have that number memorized, and just check it every once in a while, because even though you might have an attorney, the attorney is relying on the 1-800 number, their immigration court portal, and the mail. But one of those three can, at least we have those options, but you should also, take that initiative and make sure you have that power knowing what's going on. So it's 1-800-898-7180, and make sure you have your A number ready to plug it in. They can tell you things from how long has your asylum application been pending to when is your next hearing, and who, they used to say who the judge was, but I think they just say the courtroom number now, and the location and time. We just wanted to be a resource for you. We've covered a lot of material briefly. And if you have feedback, if you have other webinars, topics you'd like to hear from us, we do consultations. You can reach us at our number 713-589-2085. And you can also be added to our newsletter. If you go to our website at rubypowerslaw.com, you can add yourself to the newsletter, And we send out information every other week, and also put it on all our social media. I think we don't have any other questions. We're going to record this and make sure that other people can to watch this later. But I mean, what do you think are some of our parting, um, you know, like takeaways that people should know, if you know, in the brief summary of our presentation today? Attorney Millian, what would you think of a big
Oh,
highlight?
yeah, I would say that I know that things are maybe at a standstill right now because of COVID, but if you don't have an attorney or if you haven't thought about your case, I think this is a perfect moment for you to sit down, look at what you have, consult with an attorney, and see what are the possibilities of you being successful with an asylum case. And if you don't have representation, then I would say that now more than ever, you should have an attorney with you, especially you know, during these times where things are changing almost on a daily basis, so that they can help you navigate, and so that you won't be in the dark. And just for everyone to remain hopeful. You know, we're hopeful that things are going to change and things are going to get better. And you know, like Attorney Power said, we're here to be a resource for you. So if there's anything that we can do for you,
Mhm.
have any friends, any family members that have any questions, you know, call our firm so that we can do a consult with them and we can talk about what they could potentially be eligible for.
And you know, if you're on this and watching this and you are a client, you know, we want you to know that we are going to conferences, we are speaking, we are talking to many others, we are directly, you know, connected to the sources. We're monitoring this closely and trying to do the best we can with all in light of all the complications and challenges. And and so just, you know, have that faith in us. And there was a recent question, and I think that's a good point that we need to mention as well, is that, you know, for a lot of the people who applied in, let's say, 2016 and 17 and 18, and then there was that change in the last in, first out policy in early, that was 2018, right? I've lost track what year that,
2018, I think
yeah,
it was.
right, January 20, got rid of that asylum processing timetable, and they then said last in, first out. Well, we haven't seen very many, if at all, people being called in from that pre-LIFO list, but except for people who filed for expedite requests. Now, you know, a lot of our clients are in the Houston field office, but we also have clients all around the country. Most of the other country asylum field offices, asylum offices have a lot faster processing times than the Houston one does. Houston also has to cover the border, and so they usually have a little bit more of a backlog. All that being said, if you have a case, the asylum affirmative pending since like 16, 17, 18, and you haven't had an interview, you are like many others. And what we're seeing is, unless you have a reason that is more of like a life or death, medical, extreme financial, but even then it might not meet it, reason, or family separation unity issue, um, we those are the reasons we could do an expedite request with the asylum office. Now we basically would put something, a request in, the reason why, and how the asylum interview having sooner would impact, would lessen the hardship with evidence, and we send it off to the asylum office. They may or may not accept it. We've had times where we've submitted and we've heard nothing. That pretty much means that they didn't accept it. And we don't do the request for just unless it has a really good reason, because we don't want to burn our bridges with the asylum office. But if you are a client or you're someone who wants to look into that, please do contact us, and we could talk about that. So that I'm sort of answering one of the questions in the chat regarding that. And so basically you can do an expedite, they may or may not approve it, and with the fact that they're only doing potentially 2 interviews a day, it might take a while to get to everybody. I think the question somebody asked about COVID testing, I accidentally, let me see where it is in here. I
Oh
might
yeah, I
have,
answered.
you
Yeah,
did? Okay, great. Okay, great.
yeah. So
Um, yeah, go ahead.
No. What I was going to say is that we had a phone call last week where one of the liaisons talked to us briefly of what they expect to see when the courts reopen. But there's really not a lot of guidance. You know, we know that face masks are going to be a requirement. They're going to be implementing social distancing, but you know, that's all we know now. We don't know anything else. We know that judges may be in separate rooms and only the respondent and the attorney may be allowed in the room. But when we do get guidance, when they do give us all those details, we will give those, pass those on to the clients so that they can be aware of what they need to do ahead of time.
Yeah, that's right. And from that call with the American Immigration, the Immigration Judge Union town hall Wednesday, it doesn't sound like they're going to be coming to a conclusion in the near future. I think the reason why the asylum office is able to move forward is because they have maybe smaller volume and less caseload, and they can sort of pivot, and they're not, it's a different agency. They're under Department of Homeland Security. The Immigration Court is under Executive Office of Immigration Review under Department of Justice, and it's a little bit different. So overall, we talked a little bit longer than we thought, but we gave you a lot of information. We're on top of it. We want you to make sure to reach out to us. If you're our client, you know, we've got this, and feel free to check in with us, but this is our way of communicating with you. If you are looking to potentially look for an immigration attorney to help you with your asylum case, please give us a call if you're interested. And there's another question that says, you mean the new laws will not affect those who applied before August 2020? For the most part, some will, and some won't. So it sort of depends. The work authorization, the processing times might take a little bit longer, even though you are still eligible. And if you're getting a renewal, then you get that automatic extension. And some of the case law will be impacted for the ones that actually become law. But like what we're saying here is that things are slowing down. The asylum office is moving really slow, but I'm very impressed with them. But the 2 cases a day potentially. Immigration court, non-detained is open, but they're not doing hearings, and they keep pushing them back. And I think that's gonna keep happening. Honestly, we probably are a couple of months away from them being able to open if they get organized. And we're just all hoping and praying that those who can vote vote for a pro-immigrant administration, so we can roll back a lot of these harsh realities and chipping away of asylum law. So we're just gonna have to stay positive, and you know, just if you have control over when you can apply for asylum or work authorization, then you need to just be on top of that. And that's, I think, one of the bottom lines. Don't wait, because we also have that furlough and looming in the back of our mind. We might get resolved in the next week before it goes into effect, but we don't know. So reach out to us at, I'll let Dana remind everybody, but it's been great. Thank you so much for watching. We'll continue to do these, and please, we'll upload this. Please feel free to share with your friends.
Yeah, guys. So again, thank you so much, Attorney Ruby and Attorney Cynthia. They did a really good job at explaining. Again, you know, if you guys have any questions, particularly on your case, please feel free to give us a call, and you'll be able to speak to them more efficiently on, you know, your specific case. Again, we always make some very informative videos, whether it's on Facebook Live or sometimes we do webinars just like this. You can find all this information on our Facebook Live and past videos with past information on all kinds of immigration topics. You guys can also, you know, email us at contact@rubypowerslaw and, you know, request to be added onto our newsletter if that's easier for you, or go to our website at Ruby Powers Law, and we'll certainly add you. We always send out updates, like on the asylum one or like DACA. We send out updates as soon as we get those, you know, to keep our clients and those that are subscribed to our newsletter informed. Again, thank you guys so much.
I have
And
one question real quick, Dana.
yeah.
Someone asked, where will we be uploading, or where can they find this recording?
Okay, so this is going to be uploaded to our website and both to Facebook. So feel free to, I'm gonna send out an email to you guys after this webinar with the link to our website that's gonna have this video and any other information that you guys may need for this.
And we'll likely send a link in our newsletter too for anyone who missed it today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
thank you so
so
much.
yeah, of course. Thank you guys for joining again. It was a pleasure speaking to you guys, and we hope to see you guys soon.
Thank you. Have a great
Bye.
weekend. Be safe.
Bye.
Bye.